Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thank you for stopping by yet again. It has been a while, to say the least, since I last posted. I have been putting a lot of time and effort, though, into rethinking how I want to approach things in weeks to come. And I keep thinking I've got it settled in my head, and then I don't, and I have to keep working at it. I'm now finally, I think, at that point where I can move forward. I haven't seen anybody for a while, so who knows whether you come back and find it still operating here. But there will be more coming. This is going to be, again, another of my summaries on what's going on in Panama. The food one will come after that. Yes, indeed it will. But above all will come a letter from, or a email report from the Retirement Wave newsletter. And I will keep you up to date on that as well. So there's a lot happening, and we'll get to it when we get to it. It will unfold, and I trust it's all positive for everybody. Now, let's move ahead here. Water, the canal. I wanted this to be up there. As you can see it, these are the two lakes, or really reservoirs, that support the canal. On the left is Gatun, much larger. And then the one on the right, Alajuela. Alajuela is supportive, but Gatun is the major one. And it was the one, if you have seen this before in videos here, way back a year or so ago, it was way down toward the red end, the yellow. And it was really much too close to the red, which would simply mean that we did not have enough water in there to function, for the canal to function. It never got that far down because we reduced the number of people, or number of ships transiting. That is over. And as you can see now, we're in the green, very much so in both cases. That number on the left, that it keeps going up. That's the depth in feet, because the American set this up to begin with, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, when they built the canal, and they just keep using the same measurement. After that, why not? Just to keep everything the same. Now that we are at this point, we can start to think about everything but that right at the moment. So we're not worried about it anymore. It is not a problem, and the rain is coming. We're not going to have to worry about it for some time to come. Thank heavens for that. Oh, and by the way, officially we'll be completely back to normal on September 1st. We're like 3 or 4% behind that at the moment. They kept a little bit back, and I think they're just seeing to it that they've got those reservoirs where they want them. But on September 1st, that's what will happen. We're almost there. Okay, now I want to talk too about the economy. A lot of people are concerned about that. They're very much so, and I understand that. We have one measure that we use, and those who've been here for a while will know it when they see it. It's called the monthly indicator of economic activity. I won't go into the whole story of this particular index, but it's very similar to what's called the gross domestic product, or let's think of it as this: the income, the total income of the nation. This is a figure very similar to the gross domestic product, but it's easier to put together because it's got, the majority of the statistics are right here. But to get the total national income is an immensely complex issue and requires a lot of data and a lot of hard work, and that takes time. But most of the economic figures, the hard statistics, are right here and can be gotten hold of. You grab those, you put those together, and they will almost always reflect the GDP. In this instance, in Panama's instance, this indicator I'm going to show you very, 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 very closely correlates with the gross national income. So with that in mind, here we go. As you can see, this covers a period back to January 1st of 2020. 2020 and 2021 were pretty awful years, pardon me. 2022 and 2023 saw a considerable improvement, and of course 2024, this is up until June, the first 2 quarters, the first half of this year. So you've got 4.5 years there in front of you. Ignore 20 and 21. Those were the COVID lockdown years and everything, and they're just going to be weird for the rest of economic history, so to speak. But if you look at the far right here, you see where we are now. People often go directly to that and they think, wow, this is not very good, and it looks like it could fall severely. It looks like it is falling. What's going on here and so forth. I'll show you what's going on here, because that's not how I look at it. How I look at it is like this. Let me bring this one up. Okay, now you see what you may have noticed, but this is what I immediately look for in the second quarter. And that is the same pattern. And you can see it's very clear here in those 3 years, the same pattern. So I'm not put off or concerned or worried at all about that most recent numbers. They're par for the course. No? So what it's saying is, as we often say, the red or pink or whatever dots here are the bouncing ball from month to month. It is the blue line that is really telling you the trend line, which is a statistical measure. It's a rolling average. It shows you what's, without all the bouncing, the general thrust of the economy. And it's gently rising. It is basically flat. That's not good enough for us. That's not what we're used to. We're used to a real climbing. But I want to point out the fact that we're not exactly collapsing or anything of the sort. And a lot of people get these really strange attitudes, and much of it comes, it's not really strange, it's just that they don't know the economy is far more diversified than we think. The canal is very, very well run, and they can increase income by not manipulating, but by scheduling differently and with different size ships. I mean, there's endless ways of dealing with this, and it has helped us maintain stability. That is one of the most fundamental words in Panama, is stability, and that's what we're really seeking above all, and then growth, all right? But growth based on stability. So there you go. That's where the economy is. It was, I should say, as of June, and in a few months we'll get the rest, a few more months, statistics coming up, and we'll see what they have to say. But I'm not losing any sleep over it. I don't see any reason to. Now, next up, the mine. Okay, we've been mentioned, nothing's really changed since the last time. Just President Molino has said we will wait till next year. Because really, First Quantum is trying to push them into negotiations while moving toward arbitration. It's just, they're not handling this terribly well. They're making mistakes. And the reason I say that is that Bloomberg put out with quite a detailed report. Now, it came out actually April of last year, or April of this year. And it was done over a period of time. They interviewed all sorts of people involved with this process. It's not something I can send you to with a link because it's behind a paywall for sure at Bloomberg. So why put you through that frustration? But anyhow, the simple fact of the matter is that it gives a very good view of what happened. It interviews everybody in the corporation and the government and what have you over a period, conversations and actions held over a period of years. It's very thorough. And by the time it's done, I read it, I thought to myself, well, there you go. The error that really got this screwed up from the beginning was First Quantum. Sorry, guys, because they were told, they were given advice by the government of that time, which is a couple administrations ago, that the deal they had gotten was a really, really sweet deal, too sweet for all practical purposes, and that this was going to have to be addressed. And if they were wise, they would do it now, and the error had been made. Now, well, they should step forward and say, we'd like to improve this, because we know it's perhaps tilted too far in our favor, and so on. Come up with whatever reasons you want to, because if you don't, we're going to come into the picture and we're going to make demands. Right? And you don't want to get involved with politics in this country when it comes to that. They didn't take the advice. The implication, pretty clear in there, is that they're risk takers at First Quantum. They left me with the impression that this is a mistake made so often by people coming into the country, is to think that we're simple people, that we're not very sophisticated, that the big guys from the big countries and all this, are the really important ones, and that we'll be intimidated easily, and we'll back off. And they're learning the hard way that it does not work that way. It didn't work that way for the Spaniards, who did this, a Spanish corporation who did the same thing with the expansion of the canal, and they've lost almost all their cases in arbitration, and it's just one of those things. It's just a waste of everyone's time and a lot of money, but not so much ours. We have a good team there. And the point being simply this, that is still there, and that will be addressed, but it's being done in a fashion that sets us up to go nose to nose with them. I mean, and equals. And they are not going to push us around. And that's really, really what he's talking about. And I don't know when they'll wake up to it. In any event, in terms of the economy overall, we are still expanding in other respects. I'd just like to say that we've got the third landing strip at Tocumen International Airport runway, the third big runway. And it was the second one that led to the creation of the second terminal, which we're almost complete. We've got a few things that still aren't settled with that particular contractor, which are very annoying, but they're not dangerous or anything of that sort. They just make things less convenient than we'd like them to be, and they will be solved, and we'll take care of that. In the meantime, we can't stop because the numbers of people coming in are increasing now, more and more and more. And this has been turning out to be a very good year for that kind of visit. And as a result of that, we have always thought we were going to need a third runway, but we didn't want to start the actual movement in that direction until such time as we really knew what the future held. I mean, whether we were recovering, how quickly we'd recover, blah, 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 and so forth. We recovered. They're underway. They will move. The airport authority will move forward, and there will be a plan presented, and there will be a third runway developed. And whether, the details will become clear. They have a lot of work ahead of them. I'm sure they have a good idea of what they'd like to do, but they have to get the land set aside. A lot has to happen. So whether it's a new terminal or an extension of the second terminal and all this, wait and see. But the key point, it's going to be done. And that further strengthens our claim to being a hub for the Americas. And our freight, even during the course of the COVID period, that went up. I mean, we've really become a freight hub. And so it's not just passengers, although plenty of those coming through too, but freight as well. It's very interesting. We got more of that coming down the road, and there's a lot of activity out at the airport and that whole area. And thankfully, we've got the metro running out there and bringing people into town, which is a nice step in the right direction. Now, so that's just to keep in the back of your head if you weren't aware of that. And one thing that's not going to be particularly important to most of you, I assume, but some of you may be coming from someplace, going to someplace, and stopping or landing in Panama on the way. If that should ever be the set of circumstances for you, and you're on Copa Air has and has had for a while, but now is definitely have. I think they're going to keep it up for a while, at least a year maybe, a stopover program. And that means that if you're on Copa Air and you make this plan in advance, you don't do that after you get here, but before you go, you can get a ticket to come here and then spend up to 7 nights in Panama and then leave and continue your trip without any penalty. And that is normally not the case, as I'm sure most of you are aware who've done much air travel. They don't like it when you do that. But this is set up to encourage it. And I was reading about it recently. I hadn't even thought about it for a while. But they put together a package of discounts for hotels, for restaurants, for things to do, to provide to people who are doing this. We're trying to really encourage it. And now, you're going to have to pay your own expenses while you're here. It's not a freebie, no. But for people who want to get to know the country It can be for one night, it can be 3 nights, it can be 5 nights, it can be 7 nights. It's up to you, depending on what you want to do. It's there, and it's an opportunity that is not always going to be there, for sure, and it's unusual. So I wanted to be sure you were aware of it. Investment grade. Standard & Poor's has held Panama steady at its current level, which is still investment grade. Moody's still has us at investment grade. Fitch's, as you may know, dropped us just below investment grade. We'll hear from them when we get around to it, but we're not terribly concerned about it. We're getting very good reviews for what we have done since the election. I'll mention a little bit more about that in a moment. But we are considered to still be investment grade as long as at least 2 of the 3 agree, and they do. So, and they have just, they confirmed it last we heard. I don't know when the next Moody's report comes out, but we're not worried about that. And we might get Fitch on the other side too. By the way, for those of you who follow trading economics, which is for things like ratings for countries, you may note when you go in to check a rating out that they no longer accept Fitch. They've replaced it with Dun & Bradstreet. So I don't know why that's the case, but so be it. So and as far as they're concerned, we're entirely in the investment grade level. Okay. All right. This is one of the hardest things going. One of the big important things that happen is that we do draw a lot of investment concern. But we have a problem, and this is particularly true for people from North America, yeah, but really true for Latin America, for people who think they know Latin America. And the assumption is that Panama is pretty much like every other country, except that it's small. It's the Americans who've been responsible for everything. We're still basically an agricultural country. We're not terribly sophisticated, blah, blah, blah. All this nonsense. And it is nonsense. We're 75, 80% urbanized at this stage of the game. Agriculture's, I haven't looked at the last figure, but it should be substantially less than 3% of the gross domestic product. That is the national income. And that includes not just agriculture as such, but livestock and aquaculture, for fish and seafood and shrimp and all this sort of stuff. Everything to do with that portion of the economy. And it's less than 3% of the economy. So we are a service economy. And that's really the services we provide through the canal, particularly the liquefied natural gas depot that we have here that we use to supply the region. They buy it from us and so on. And a lot of other stuff, the second largest in the world, free trade zone, which is it's a multi-billion-dollar a year affair. There's so much happening. And yet to go through it all would bore you to tears. But most people are not aware of it. So they come even when they're from Latin America, and often make the worst mistakes. When Venezuelans first came in, I witnessed a group of Venezuelans try to get a project off the ground, and it was terrible. I talked to the real estate agent who was working with them, and he was really pleased because this was going to be a major development. I was interested because they were going to have it out east of the city, and that was very important to me, on Lake Bayano. And I thought, wow, this is something important. And they were well into the whole process of at least the initial paperwork. But in Panama, you do not put anything out for sale until you have every single piece of paper in place and it's settled and done, okay? And one of those things is the environmental impact statement. Yes, we have those too. And that has to be finished as well. So that's what they were working on. Well, then I heard an announcement in the newspapers that there was going to be a presentation made, and I thought, I got the last minute, and it was not convenient for me, so I didn't bother to go up. I was interested in seeing what I'd read afterwards, and then I read in our financial newspaper here. It's called Capital Financiero. It's sort of like a Wall Street Journal for our stats, and they are strictly business and investment and so on. they gave a report on this presentation this group had made, and I was all eyes for that. They were very enthusiastic. They had all these grandiose plans. But it mentioned in the article that it didn't appear that they had their environmental impact study finished. They'd been asked, and it didn't seem like that was done. But that had, of course, had to be done before they got to the point of offering it for sale, and that's what they were doing. I thought, oh. So I called them. This is a little later. I picked up the phone, and I called the real estate guy, because I thought something's very seriously wrong with this. And I said, what's up? What's happening with this? He said, I don't want to talk about it. He said, oh, I'm sorry. He had been so enthusiastic before. He said they did not. They never should have done that. They've lost it. They've been denied. They are not able to start sales. He said, we have nothing more to do with them. They're no longer a client. Bam. That comes often from the attitude is that somehow these folks, who, especially if they're wealthy, they come in and they think they're really special and that they're way above us, don't understand at all how things work. They figure they just give somebody $20,000 and everything will be taken care of and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm sure there'll be somebody here who will accept the money, in the old days particularly. But here I'm beginning to think we're running into some of that again, because we have, from what I hear from investors coming up from South America and making huge investments here and then blowing it and not understanding what they're doing. And what can you say? But that's a common problem. We're not given credit for who we are, but at the same token, so what? The country's gotten used to it. I think everybody here in Panama is used to this business of looking down their noses at us and then discovering later on, oops, maybe there's something more of value here. It's a little complicated. It's a frustration, but it can also suck in North Americans and Europeans and others into the same thought pattern, and it's a dangerous thing to do. Anyhow, other than that, the most important news here is that the political situation is far better than anybody had expected. There's been a lot of movement there. The president has turned, who had been seen as going to be a strong man, going to push this and push that and make things, force people to do things or whatever, which turns out to be completely silly. The man's an intelligent man, and he concedes that given the fact that his party doesn't even have anything close to a majority of the National Assembly, that he needs to work with people. And he saw that right off the bat from the beginning, and he's reached out. The independents who who never had more than 5 people, they're sort of a reform element, and in the National Assembly, and now have all summed together 24 of the 71. They massively improved. The independents also have the mayor of Panama City, who's been doing a rather dynamite job. I can begin to tell you how much has changed. A lot has changed, and it's not over with yet, and there will, of course, be disagreements, but I'm really impressed with how the National Assembly seems to be working things out so far, and it's at least civilized. Now, their disagreements are there, but nothing unusual, all right, from what I see. And great part is because nobody's close to a majority, and as I often point out, this is a major shift. And that of the 71 members of the National Assembly, the last administration, the last period, 60 of them ran for re-election. And that was normal. And it would be normal for nearly all of them to be re-elected, maybe exceptions here or there. 13 of them got re-elected. 47 of them did not get re-elected. 47 of the 60 were defeated. Whoa. Okay, so they were defeated by all sorts of people, including a whole batch of independents, but also other people from different groups. This is quite a shock to the system. So out of the 71, now some of the 60 ran for re-election, 11 did not. So of the 71 total people members of the National Assembly. 58 of them have never served in the National Assembly. 13, that same 13, are the old guard. That must be a very lonely place for these people. They're used to being the power. They controlled things. They'd snap their fingers and people had to do what they said. It doesn't work that way any longer. So people are having to learn to work together to find ways to cooperate, because when it all boils down to, it's the nation and its economy. And people have made it very, very, very clear at the polling place, this is the most important statistic and the most solid and hardest of the statistics available, and that's people's votes. Because yes, they do count the votes adequately. Yes, there's plenty of room for complaint and for protest, and that was taken, and they were adjudicated, and there were some people wanted, some didn't, and so on, but nothing unusual. The simple fact of the matter is that it was an earthquake, and nobody expected. The result of it, instead of being an uproar, is so typically Panamanian. Is there screaming and rioting in the streets? No, of course not. What, ridiculous? No. We don't have that under the worst of circumstances. So people are learning to deal with it. And people are really working at that. And we've had major changes in the payroll over at the municipal offices. That is the mayor's section for Panama City. They've reduced their payroll by over 40%. There's been going in, same stuff as going on in the National Assembly, been terrific pressure here to go in and to get rid of people who are just being sent checks every month that never show up, don't have any job to do. They're just gifts they got for supporting the right party in an election or something of this sort. It's called clientelism, and it's been a problem here for some time. It's wow when you when you basically take over 40% of the payroll and say goodbye, it's over, because they're under contracts. They're not civil servants per se. From what I understand of it, anyhow, their contracts are such that they're more gifts. Whatever they are, they were just fired. All right? Now, there can be some positions that do need to be filled, and they can be considered for them, and so on. Yeah. But it doesn't look that way. So in the National Assembly, they're sort of embarrassed because the city is going into full blast at reducing expenditures. They've had a dramatic impact on that and increasing activity of level of activity, and reducing bureaucracy and simplifying procedures and everything else. They feel the pressure from that, not only from their new members, but also from their comparison with the municipal government. Now, all this is interesting. As far as I'm concerned, it's not my problem. I am a resident. It is my concern that they do, and they do it well, but it's not my business. They are the ones who make the decisions. This is strictly Panamanian. It was born right here, so to speak. It's the way reform goes. It's the way things get better. It's when the people decide they're going to make them better. And they speak through democracy, and they get things changed, and they get better. And when they have almost all of the 5 years left. Well, 4.5 anyhow, or close to that. Not yet. Good Lord, we're not that close to the end of the year. I keep thinking we are almost at Christmas. I see decorations popping up in stores. It drives me nuts. But anyhow, we have a long ways to go, and there's going to be a lot of things coming, and they may not make me happy, but that's all right. So what? I'm not a citizen. And remember, as an expat, I have a passport. I can always get on a plane and leave if I get upset. But when you're a citizen, it's your nation, and you live here, and you have no intentions of backing up and leaving. You don't want to. You're going to stay here. You're the one who runs things. And those are the people I support. So I have Panama's back, but I must say to you that I'm impressed by many of the people here have stood up, and they're dealing as adults with a situation they had not anticipated, under terrific stress because of the canal, because of the mine, because of the question of investment grade, all this stuff. And we're trying to deal with this, with the Social Security system here, which is in terrible trouble and needs funding. And you know what? The president has told us on television, right? Very clear, very clear. We're paying for this. He's speaking to the people. The Panamanian people will pay for this. We're not going to go out and borrow money to make sense out of the Social Security program. We're going to have to use money from the natural budget to keep paying out. But we're going to reform that system, and if we have to raise ages, we'll raise age. If we have to raise the amount of money that's being put into it, then the tax, then that's what's going to happen. We're going to do it, and it's going to be in-house in this country. So don't expect me to go out and borrow $1 billion from some international bank for the purpose of fulfilling the Social Security needs funds here. We got ahead of ourselves on this, he's saying, and it's our responsibility. Wow, how many times do you get stuff like that? So I just wanted to let you know that we're alive and kicking, having a good time, and I hope you have a chance to come down and visit and see for yourself. If you do, I look forward to seeing you, having coffee with you perhaps. If you need some help finding a place here to stay, let me know. I mean, in terms of the Panama Wave Project, if you're renting or buying, but we don't push that. If you want to, we're happy to help you. If not, so be it. If you're interested, you can always go to the site and take a look at it. It's down below. But the critical factor here is that we're alive and well, and the country's got challenges ahead of it, it has challenges behind it, and it is growing to meet those challenges. And I'm just very happy to be here, enjoying it with them. Thank you for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. In this case, now that the direction in my mind is finally clear.